Hey, well, yes. This is a story that comes to us from India. An old folk tale. It starts with a king. Now, he was a smart king, a wise king, a loving king. He was beloved throughout his kingdom. It was King Ali. King Ali had a son, Prince Ali. Luckily, his name was Prince, since that's his job. Now, Prince Ali, he was the next in line to inherit the throne and inherit the crown. But he wasn't very much into politics, no. For young Ali, Prince Ali, his life was like spring break all the time. A spoiled, entitled child, partying and hanging out with his friends. They loved to go tiger hunting out, and everywhere Prince Ali went, he had his buddies and his cousins and his hangers-ons and his ne'er-do-wells hangers-ons and just a crew of people who weren't really his friends. They just liked him because he was rich.
Now, it came to the very end of the old king's life. He was old, he had had a great life, he had lived a very long time. He was like 54. Old guy. Hey, I know, there we go. And he called his son to say, "Son, you must come. It is at the end of my life, and I have but one wish for you."
Well, the end of your life, that means I get to be king? Oh, well, what is it that I need? What do you need from me?
Well, yes, you are going to get to be king. That's not really my wish. You're the only guy, so I guess we'll go with that. But the wish that I have is I want you to promise that you will always keep my oldest trusted advisor as your personal advisor. Keep him by your side. Do you promise?
I do promise. I will keep the trusted old advisor at my side. Now, the prince knew exactly. He didn't need to say the name Chandra to know who he was talking about. The oldest advisor was the oldest wizened old man in the entire castle. Some people thought he was there when the castle was built around him. So he knew exactly who the oldest and wisest advisor was, and he promised, yes, I will keep Chandra at my side at all times when I am king.
Well, the king died, and then there was the new king, and he was very surprised. His thought was party, but as it turns out, problems. Pretty soon the people started lining up and said, "Your Royal Highness, we're having a problem. We have a famine in the land." And then someone else would come and said, "Oh, the Royal Navy, it needs to be replaced and upgraded. We need money for that." And then someone else would come and say, "Do you know the rats that have overcome the kingdom?"
So every time, all this time, if the people would come forward and give their pleas, well, Ali thought, I shall consult my advisors. And he would bring his advisors forward and he'd say, "Oh, there's a rat infestation. Our fleet has been dashed upon the rocks and we're without ships. There's been a flood and all of the fields are flooded. And what should we do?"
Well, there had many smart advisors, but then Ali remembered, he needed to call that oldest trusted advisor and had him sent in.
"Oh, sir. Oh, good sir. We're having so much calamity in the kingdom. There's problems afoot. And I have promised my father I would seek your advice whenever there was a problem. Tell me, what should we do?"
Well, I have only but one thing to tell you. All is as it should be.
All is as it should be. Now, when the other advisors come up and the boats have been dashed upon the rocks and they need a fleet, the advisor would say, your cousin in the next kingdom has ships you could borrow, or there are grain stores that we can feed the people with until the fields are dry. But every time the old wise advisor would say, "All is as it should be," which did not seem like an awful lot of help. Well, even though the young prince, who is now the king, was concerned with matters of state by necessity, he still loved spending lots of time with his buddies and his friends and his hangers-on and all of the folks who would travel with him. And he would still go out at hunting season, when tiger hunting season, his favorite activity. So this next summer, he went out tiger hunting, and he took all his friends, courtiers, hangers-ons, and ne'er-do-wells, and the wisest old advisor. Well, as they were riding through the jungle...
I love tiger hunting.
So, the Prince Ali and his friends were all on horseback, trundling through the jungle, listening and waiting and looking for the tigers. They're very hard to find because they're pouncing creatures, and hiding is what they do. Well, as the prince was coming around one bend in the road, a tiger leapt right out from underneath the bush. This startled the prince's horse, and the horse took off like a shot, riding, jumping through the forest, and the prince, he almost completely fell out of his saddle, except for his foot was caught in the stirrup. And he's riding all that way through the stirrup, and there's a log lying on the ground, and the horse springs over the log, and the boot comes off, along with this big toe, still in the boot. Ow! Oh, my foot! Oh, my toe! I've lost my toe! Oh, my goodness, blood! Oh, this is horrible! I've lost my toe, can't you? What's the matter with you? Look, aren't you panicked? I've lost my toe! What is wrong with you? This is a terrible thing! I'm not...
I have something to tell you. All is as it should be.
All is as it should be. All is as it should be. That's what you always say when there's famine and floods. And you just say, all is as it should be. This is a complete waste of time. Why my father wanted me to keep you at my side. I will never know. I'm done with this all is as it should be business. Off to the dungeon with you. I don't want to hear anymore. All is as it should be. To the dungeon.
And so he sent him off to the dungeon, and, well, he went, he saw the royal doctor, got some things taken care of, and it wasn't too much longer, because he was a very dedicated tiger hunter and party guy. He decided it was time to head back out and hunt himself some more tigers.
Ah, yes. So once again, the king, he gathered forth his friends and his buddies and his cousins and the ne'er-do-wells and the hangers-ons and all those people who aren't really his friend, and they headed on out into the jungle to find a tiger. Now, this time the prince decided, or the king, I should say, decided that he wanted to travel a little further afield. He didn't have much luck before in the area that he usually hunts in, so they traveled far to the north, near the borderlands. And on the other side of the border, the cannibals. Ooh, this is very dangerous riding close to the borderlands when there's cannibals right on the other side.
And it just so happened the king got separated from his men, and before you knew it, a whole large group of cannibals came and grabbed him up and pulled him into the town. Well, that village they went, well, they took him, and immediately, the very first thing, they stripped off all those disgusting clothes and dragged him through the streets saying, yummy, he's going to make a really delicious stew. Yes, he will. But as they got him almost up with his naked glory...
Is that cauldron meant for me? It looks awful hot.
But then one of them looked down at his foot and said, No, you are not perfect. Your body has been mutated. It is terrible. We can never eat you. Get rid of him.
So the cannibals, they grabbed the naked king and they hauled him down to the borderlands, and they just threw him across the border, naked as the day he was born, just lying there in the jungle floor. Ah!
Well, very luckily, His men and their horses came along really quickly. They wrapped him in a cloak and took him back to the kingdom. But the king, well, it had kind of shook him up a little bit here.
That was so close. If that religious wise man hadn't noticed that my body had been mutilated, I'd be dead by now. And I do remember old Chandra, the wise advisor, he did tell me that when my toe was lost, all is as it should be. So perhaps I should give him an apology. Well, not an apology, loyalty. But I will address the issue with him. Bring forth the old wise man to the great hall. I wish to speak to Chandra, the wise man. Bring him forth from his chains.
Your Royal Majesty.
Yes. Well, I wanted to bring you back out of the dungeon and perhaps hire you back on, make you my wise advisor. Once again, I don't know if you heard this story, but I was out tiger hunting, as I was with you that time, and I was captured by the cannibals. And the cannibals had a great cauldron ready and boiling for me to eat me. But then, their holy man, he looked down and he noticed my toe was missing. And he said, in their faith, they cannot eat mutilated flesh. And I had clearly been mutilated and they let me go free. My life was saved because I had lost my toe. All is as it should be. But I just feel uncomfortable that I have tossed you in the dungeon after telling me all is as it should be. And I should have kept you by my side as I promised my father I would. And perhaps then you would have been with me on the tiger hunt and all we would be in good fellowship once again.
But you have to think, young man, if I had been with you in my beautiful unmutilated state, they might have eaten me. So you see, in the end, it is true. All is as it should be.
Yep.